I have a daughter, Elena, who's a young teen. Elena has a friend called Kennedy, who's new at school this year. Kennedy's mom works in the school office, becomes kind of relevant later. So our house is kind of the house. Elena doesn't have a big group of friends, but as long as the kids can get their own snacks and not make noise, anyone's welcome. Because of this, Elena never really goes to anyone else's house. All her friends come to us, and we've even hosted her friends' birthday sleepovers. A couple of weeks ago, though, Elena asked if she could sleep over at Kennedy's house, as the next day was a family party and Kennedy had been allowed to invite a friend. I said, sure. Again, her mum works in the school office. Whenever she's come to pick Kennedy up, she's been polite. I didn't see an issue. But when I went to drop Elena off, my opinion changed. Kennedy's stepdad answered the door, and I'm not kidding when I say I haven't felt so immediately disturbed by anyone. I can't even explain why. My stomach just lurched. I immediately felt like I needed to hold some kind of conversation with him so that I could at least get a better read on him. I made some small talk on the porch, during which he proceeded to open an alcoholic drink and flirtatiously not believe I was old enough to have a teenage daughter, after asking me twice how old she was and telling me how similar we look. He also demanded, in front of me, that Kennedy change her clothes because she was wearing shorts, in her own house. Kennedy's mom came home while I was on the porch, which made me feel slightly better, so I left. When I got home, I told my husband he was going to pick Elena up this evening because she wasn't spending the night there. We made an excuse about a forgotten plan for the next day and fetched Elena before dinner. I don't care if everyone thinks I'm crazy or judges me for not letting her stay on no evidence. I grew up where if you had a feeling, you followed it. My husband agreed with me that Elena wouldn't be going over there again. So last week I was at school pickup and bumped into the mom of one of Elena's other friends, with whom I'm casual friends, mom friends basically. She mentioned she hadn't seen Elena at Kennedy's that Sunday at the party. Kennedy had invited this other girl to the Sunday party but not the sleepover. I said no, Elena hadn't slept over. My friend asked if it was because of anything in particular, and I was honest and said I just don't want her going over there because the stepdad gives me the creeps. I told my friend about the interaction, and she thanked me for telling her and said she'd probably do the same as I did. I thought nothing more of it. It didn't come up again. Except yesterday at school, pickup, Kennedy's mom came upside and confronted me. She said another mom was now not letting her daughter come over because of males in the house without the mother home, and that she knows it was my fault because I was the one who met her husband. She said she knew I lied about picking Elena up early. She accused me of being a snob because Kennedy is at the school on free tuition, which she gets because her mom works there, and of judging her family based on where they live. None of that is true. There was no convincing her. I guess I didn't adequately defend myself because, first, I was in public and didn't want a scene, and second, because being a snob probably sounded better than your husband seems predatory. She then said I was isolating Kennedy by poisoning the other mom. I'm not sure I can even say it's untrue, but I would want another mom to tell me. You can do what you want with the information, but if I'd never met the stepdad and someone else felt as uncomfortable as I felt, I would want them to let me know. That's why I told her, because we're all just trying to look out for our kids. But Kennedy's mom seemed more upset than angry, and I get that this is embarrassing for her. I also know I don't have any actual evidence that this man did anything. So now I feel like maybe I was out of line sharing my completely unfounded opinion with my friend. Am I? Do I owe the whole family an apology? Not the idiot. A simple rule in life, if it doesn't feel right, it isn't right. Meeting people or going places that make you feel this way are just ways to put yourselves or others in a dangerous or unwanted situation. Listen to yourself. Heed the warning. Agreed. Also, OP says she doesn't have any evidence this guy has done anything, which is technically true. But in my opinion, OP saw him do two things that would be too much for me. First, hearing him tell his stepdaughter she can't wear shorts around him would be enough. The second thing is drinking alcohol when he's the sole adult responsible for the children. OP says the mom arrived home, but he was planning to receive OP's child, let OP leave, crack open a drink, and have his wife arrive home eventually. That's not okay with me. Exactly, stepdad was waving several red flags. Kennedy's mom should be having a conversation with her husband about appropriate behavior. I don't think you were gossiping. You answered a question truthfully. The other mum must have gotten suspicious feedback from her kiddo for her to straight up ask what your thoughts were. Kennedy's mom is upset because she can't hide her creepy idiot husband. Your gut instinct was something you picked up on subconsciously that told you he wasn't safe, even if your brain couldn't figure out what it was at the time. You were right to take your daughter home. Always trust your gut. My name is John Paul, but I go by JP. All my friends, teachers and family members call me JP, except for my high school Spanish teacher. In Spanish, J is pronounced as jota, jota, and P is pronounced as pay, pay. So my Spanish teacher always keeps calling me Jota Pay in class instead of my real nickname, JP. When he first said Jota Pay, I found it a bit funny and laughed with the class. I thought it was a one-off remark by my teacher. But he kept calling me Jota Pay even beyond the first day of class, and it's getting annoying now. I once asked him after class if he could please call me JP, but my teacher refused, saying this was a Spanish class and that Jota Pay was the Spanish equivalent of my name. He said he wasn't calling me any rude words, he was just translating the pronunciation of my two-letter English name to Spanish. Am I the idiot for not wanting my teacher to keep calling me Jota Pay, even if it is harmless? I just don't like it and prefer JP. Edit, I live in the USA. No idiots here. I get you'd rather be JP, but he is calling you by your name in Spanish class. If he did this in math, or if he only does it with you, he would be the idiot. But in this situation, he's doing his job, speaking Spanish in a Spanish lesson. I think it was fair of you to ask, but in Spanish class we speak Spanish is also a fair rule in my opinion, though I'm expecting to be crucified by people who feel that personal preferences should be respected above all else in every situation. Disagree. If someone's name is John, a Spanish person wouldn't call them Juan. That's not how names or nicknames work. They don't translate, they are what they are. Just because their name is JP doesn't mean that that should be translated. LMAO. Every high school Spanish class I've ever been in, we were assigned Spanish names. Mine was Camilla. Every state, every friend, every family member. I guarantee that if this kid were being honest, he'd tell you the rest of the class has a name too. You are the idiot, OP. OP needs to chill out. Teens who will find the most success in life would laugh this off and embrace it as a funny joke. Not the idiot, but this reads as so sensitive and lame. The teacher is the idiot for not respecting OP's wishes when they ask for it to stop, but OP needs to learn to let stuff like this roll off their back, or even to play along. My mom died when I, a teen female, was a baby. My aunt, my sister's mom, stepped in and became like a second mom to me. When I was pre-tween, she moved for work, so I went from seeing her every day to her flying me out 1 or 2 times a month, plus 1 week of winter break, spring break and 50-50 over the summer. When I was a tween, my dad married Judy, and they kept saying she was my new mom, and I didn't need to keep visiting my aunt because I had Judy. He also gave my room to Judy's kids since it was bigger, and I refused to share and told my aunt that they decided that I couldn't fly alone, so she either had to fly out to get me or drive all day there and back. I decided to stay with my aunt a few months after my dad married Judy because it was pretty obvious that he cared about his new family more than me. My dad and Judy are getting divorced now because Judy cheated on him and he found out that their new kids weren't his. He called me and asked me to move back home because he misses me and he doesn't have any family left. I said no because I like it here. My aunt is a way better parent than my dad was, and she's been dating this guy who comes over on weekends and makes us the best burgers and steaks, and he fixes cars up as a hobby and side job, so he's working on one for me. I also really like my school and I have friends here, and we're really close to a lot of good colleges, so I probably won't even have to move out for college. My dad and his side of the family are upset that I won't move back because he's my dad and he needs me. But he's the one who chose his new family over me, and their getting divorced isn't my problem to solve. I don't really plan to change my mind, but I want to know if my refusing to move back makes me an idiot. If you weren't getting a divorce, would he want to make amends and have you in his life? Or is it just about him and the fact that he now has no one? What happens if he gets into a new relationship? I think we all know the answers to the above questions. He will do it again. You are not the idiot. He probably will, yeah. He only wants her back now because he's depressed and feels like he has nothing. Don't let family guilt you into leaving a situation where you're flourishing and happy because he's your father. If he had acted like it, it wouldn't have been a problem in the first place. Too many people really think, but family is a valid reason to do something you don't want to do. To be real, Dad doesn't have anything. He threw away his daughter to please a woman who clearly cared nothing for him. I have a little sympathy for him, but not much. And well, the daughter refusing him after he threw her away is simply chickens coming home to roost. I feel like I'm going crazy. My wife's best friend, we will call Julie, and her husband, we will call Tom, are going through marriage issues. I'm kind of an unwilling Dr. Phil for our friend group, and I was approached by Tom a few weeks ago. He was having a bit of a breakdown because he thought Julie was cheating. Julie told him he was wrong, but during their fight she said she didn't love him anymore, blah blah blah. Tom asked what my wife and I did years ago when we went through the same type of issues. I somehow got roped into their issues, and I started helping Tom deal with some of his inner issues, telling him things I did to grow into a man of God that my wife needed me to be. So about 2 weeks ago, Tom sent me some evidence of Julie flirting and inappropriately texting some dude. I called my wife, flabbergasted because I couldn't believe that this person I knew for years would be unfaithful to her husband. My wife is equally shocked. Later that day, I got a message from Tom saying my wife and Julie were talking, and that my wife had known about the other dude for a minute or two. She lied to me to cover for her friend. My wife and I have a pact. We don't lie when we promise on certain things. It's a failsafe for us. Well, she did. Then their issues rolled over into our marriage. Oof. So we got over it. Tom and Julie went to counselling, and she started talking to another random dude online. Tom caught her, is upset, and calls me. I asked my wife if she knew about this other dude. She says no, but in fact she did. I could see it on her face. I asked her, is this a situation where you need to lie to protect your friend? She started crying, and I knew what I needed to do. My wife and I have been married for 15 years and we're good. I don't think she's being unfaithful to me, but I'm upset because it feels like she's choosing her friend's confidence over mine. She says, people need to be able to confide in people, which I replied, sure, talk about being unhappy in your life, etc., but putting you in a position to lie to me again because she can't stay faithful is crazy. Am I the idiot for asking my wife if her best friend is cheating on her husband, who's my friend? Geez, so much drama. Everyone's the idiot here. You and your wife need to step away from their business. You're going to wreck your own getting involved because you'll both start taking sides. Exactly, the whole situation is weird. On one hand, nobody wants their spouse to be best friends with someone who thinks it's okay to cheat and is actively cheating and lying to their partner. On the other hand, you're asking your wife to betray her friend's confidence so you can rat her out to her husband. On the face of it, you're not doing anything wrong, but you're putting your wife in a very uncomfortable position. Realistically, they would both be better off dropping the friendship. The whole thing is messy. It seems like OP would rather play out his group therapy fantasies than focus on his own relationship. You are the idiot. You cannot be Dr. Phil for your friends anymore. You don't have the qualifications and it's negatively impacting your marriage. I understand your concerns, but interrogating your wife as if she's cheating on you and not her friend committing these actions is unhealthy. You should seek out professional couples counselling with your wife. The only complete idiot here is the friend. Neither OP nor his wife should have been put in this position to begin with. A position they're only in because a friend not only had to cheat, but also had to let the wife find out and know. OP, your friends just need to get divorced and move on. You and your wife need to go to counselling. My family lives in Canada. This is important. My kid was being bullied at school. He's a big kid and I've always told him to resolve his problems with words. I've told him to report bullying to teachers and if they don't listen to tell the principal. Also to tell his mom and me so we can follow up. My son's after-school program is a taekwondo class. Also important, he's been in taekwondo since kindergarten. He also plays hockey. There's a group of kids at his school who have been idiots to my kid and his friends. My kid did the right thing and told the teacher monitoring recess. She told him the kids were new to Canada and didn't yet know how to fit in. He went to the principal and got told pretty much the same thing. So he told his mom. She wanted to confront the parents and she likely would have ended up in custody. She's Irish, like real Irish from Ireland, not Marky Mark Irish. I told her I would take care of it. I made an appointment to talk to the principal and teacher along with my son. I went into the meeting with a simple goal, to stop the bullying. The principal and teacher both tried the same excuse on me. These kids were newcomers and weren't fully aware of how Canada differed from their home country or what they saw on American TV. I asked what was being done to stop it. They said they'd talked to the boys. I asked if the parents had been brought in and talked to. He said no. Okay. So I turned to my kid and I explained that in Canada, kids under the age of 12 cannot be charged with a crime. In fact, they can't even be arrested. Worst case scenario, if anything happened, he might have to do some community service. The principal and teacher went crazy telling me that I can't tell him that. I asked them if I was lying. They both shut up. I pointed to them and told my kid to remember that they didn't say I was wrong. I told him to tell me in a week if he was still being bullied. My understanding is that all the bullies' parents were called in and told to control their children. The bullies were also given library detention instead of recess for a month. I'm satisfied with the result, but the teacher and principal seemed upset. My wife thinks I should have given him the information privately. Not the idiot. I think you did well by your son. You asked the appropriate questions, you asked that more be done, and when the school showed little to no willingness to step up, you informed your son that he could stand up for himself. More importantly, you put the school on notice without uttering a threat or a single word for that matter. The threat is usually more terrifying than the thing itself. OP delivered the threat successfully. The fact that he had to resort to this shows how inefficient the school was. They don't care about the students, but if their school's reputation is at risk, they do everything to preserve it. What a joke. A lot of schools don't want to do anything. They want to be passive about problems and hope they go away. Simply bad leadership. It still blows my mind how adults choose to protect a school's image over protecting a kid, and I'm genuinely sorry you were forced to learn self-defense just to survive. OP, your wife missed the point. Yes, it's good to empower your kid to stand up for himself, but the message was for the adults in the room. It was, sort this out now or maybe sort out a much bigger issue later.